Shadow banks are not easy to define. Matthäus den Otter is Managing Director of the Swiss Funds Association, and he represents these kind of banks.
Shadow banks
are active in a lot of different transactions, such as financing firms, special purpose vehicles, which securitize asset-backed securities, mortgages and so on, and in addition investment funds, mutual funds, money market funds and hedge funds.
A dangerous conglomeration according to the Financial Stability Board, which watches over shadow banks on behalf of the G20, the world's major economies. Sven Andersson sees great need for regulation there.
What is the problem in shadow banking is when banking activity is in essence conducted without the protections that we have in the banking system. Capital requirements, liquidity requirements, backstop liquidity from the central bank if there is a crisis.
Many banks are tied together on the global financial system. The banks are controlled by regulators. Shadow banks operate outside the regulator's supervision, but they make transactions like regular banks and are linked to them. Since the financial crisis, ordinary banks are more and more regulated. Therefore, they leave risky assets to shadow banks. The risk of a collapse of shadow banking is increasing. In the worst-case scenario, shadow banks getting into trouble could pose a threat to the whole financial system. That's why shadow banks also need regulation. Shadow banks deal with a quarter of all assets. This corresponds to $67 trillion, 3 times the volume of 10 years ago. Lehman Brothers, the beginning of the end. Lehman had ventured too far into the grey area of dangerous transactions and unregulated shadow banking. The collapse of Lehman Brothers sent the financial world spinning. The US government could only prevent total collapse by making hundreds of billions of dollars available to the banks. In Switzerland, the government had to step in to save the UBS, but then it increased its bank regulations. But can financial flows really be restrained? Often they calm down temporarily, and then they start gushing again. Like water, financial flows seek the shortest route to money. The new regulations, such as Basel III and the even stricter rules for Switzerland, have caused the 2 major Swiss banks to pull back from risky investment banking. Credit Suisse has cut risky assets by 140 billion francs. UBS is moving away from investment banking, but speculative trading might simply be transferred elsewhere.
As Basel III raises the quality and the quantity of capital that the banking system needs to back its own engagements with, the incentives are going to be stronger in the future for activity to migrate into the shadow banking system.
A shift to shadow banking? No problem, says Matthäus den Otter.
It's all right if very large banks shift very large risk lumps to other parties who are able to bear the risk. If they're big institutional investors who know what they're doing, then I see a lowering of the systemic risk.
In the past, the financial industry has put forward the same argument, and we still had a crisis.
Memories in the financial system, unfortunately, are short. There are new people that come in, new opportunities that appear lucrative and attractive. And this activity can resume very, very quickly.
Without rules, the financial speculators will go on like before.